Here really impressive is what he's doing here, and he's really setting the standard of what it is to be a disciple. He's setting the great principle of what it is you have to do, how you have to live to be a disciple. He's setting the challenge of our lives. This is how we're challenged to live in this world. This is what's going on in today's gospel. And for some of us, it's a very, very real challenge. And for some of us, we have to live in that principle for a long time before we're able to live it out. But we're called to live it out, not just feelings. I'm not talking about feelings today when I'm talking about hate or when I'm talking about love. I'm talking about living something out, our very way of being in this world. And so Jesus is speaking to a great crowd. That's where it starts, with a great crowd. And just like today, you can hear a great crowd of people. Many people will say, oh yeah, I'm really intrigued by Jesus, or I'm really interested in Jesus. He seems like a really great guru of some kind, or some kind of wonderful spiritual teacher for today. And for all of the people who feel about Jesus that way, that's the great crowd that's following him in his day. They felt about him that way too. And he turns to all the people who feel about him that way, and he gives them a proverbial slap in the face. He says, okay, you want to come after me? I'm no pop star. I'm just not someone for crowds to follow after. Let me tell you what it is if you want to come after me. You have to hate your father and mother, your brothers and sisters, your children, your grandchildren, all of that. You have to hate that, even your own life. And you have to take up your cross. And that's what it means to follow me. And if you don't hate them, you can't follow me. And if you don't deny yourself, you can't follow me. If you don't take up your cross, you can't follow me. And so today we're talking about following Jesus. We're talking about being disciples of Jesus and really having our lives radically, dynamically changed for the better. We can come fully alive when we do what Jesus calls us to do. So it has nothing to do with following a pop star. What Jesus is telling us today, and another way of translating hate your father and mother is found in the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew says, if you love your father and mother more than me, then you cannot be my disciple. And that's probably better for us to understand, because that Greek word miseo, which means to hate, I hate, can also mean I prefer. And so they seem different words, but to have a preference for anything at all over Jesus, then your life is just going to be a nightmare. You're going to be off balance. You're going to go from problem to problem your whole life because you don't have a center to your life, and Christ has to be that center. You're just around the center, just going round and round, and it's like we got to get off that merry-go-round, okay? We got to get to the center. We got to put our lives, our heart, our faith on Jesus. And so it's really all about, if you will, Jesus is saying, I'm divine. Because to love me more than everything else, no, that's not a spiritual teacher for sure. There's a lot of spiritual teachers, and none of them say you have to love me more than you have to love everything else. Only God says you have to love me above everything else. Then everything else falls into its proper order. Life falls into its proper order. So Jesus, as much as anywhere in the gospel, is claiming right here, I am divine. And that's why I have to be your focus. That's why I have to be your grounding, why I have to be your center. And so we have a good example among the saints of people who have loved Jesus more than their father and mother. My favorite comes from the movie Brother, Sun, and Sister Moon. St. Francis of Assisi, he's over here. And St. Francis, really, his dad was wealthy, and he was. in his little town. They were like the merchants, and they had a lot of wealth. And one day, St. Francis hears that call of God on his life to just give up all his possessions. Did you hear that in the gospel today? Unless you renounce all your possessions, you can't follow me. You can't be my disciple. St. Francis took it literally, and so he gave up all his possessions, and he started giving all his father's clothes and fabrics and things away to the poor. And his father was furious, of course. You can't run a business that way. And so he confronts his son and demands obedience as a father from his son. And that's where Jesus says, unless you love me more than your father, or unless you hate your father, so to speak, as compared to following me. And so Francis, since he wasn't allowed to give his dad's clothes away, he just took off all his clothes. Because his dad says, those clothes you're wearing are mine. So Francis just took them all off. And standing naked in the square, just gave that signal. I am putting Jesus at the center of my life. My life revolves around Jesus. Not my dad, not this business, not anything else. My life revolves around Jesus. And he challenges all of us. What does your life revolve around? What else can we put at the center of our lives? Well, I've seen people put a lot of things at the center of their lives. But another example, I love the Brother, Sun, Sister Moon movie about Francis. It's an old hippie movie back in the 70s. And the bishop takes his cloak and puts it over Francis so he's not standing in the square naked. And Francis, God love him, he takes his beautiful bishop's cloak that he has now, and he takes it and he puts it on the poorest person in the crowd there, just so they know where his life revolves. So the other, believe it or not, is St. Thomas Aquinas. St. Thomas Aquinas, the angelic doctor, the smartest theologian in the Catholic Church ever, so to speak. St. Thomas Aquinas was a Benedictine, or hung out with him at least, if he didn't join the order. And his parents were pretty much okay with that, because they were well-to-do, and they figure, okay, well, he's going to be a religious order. He'll probably end up being the abbot at Monte Cassino. That'll be pretty cool. We'd love that, for him to be the abbot of Monte Cassino, and we can just show off and brag about that. But he wanted to be a Dominican. At the time, the Dominicans weren't like they are today. They weren't that respected or well-known. They were a mendicant order. A mendicant order means they begged in the streets for their food. And their parents were appalled that their son would become a Dominican and he would be begging in the streets, their streets, for food. They wanted nothing to do with it. So they tried to talk him out of it, and he wouldn't hear them. So they kidnapped him. And they took him into a castle for like a whole year, trying to convince him not to follow Jesus, but to have them be the center of their life. And he said, I'm following Jesus, and I'm becoming a Dominican. And he became one of the greatest saints of the Catholic Church. He loved Jesus more than he loved anyone or anything else, and he followed Jesus. That's our challenge today. That's the principle today in our life. I held my grandbaby just a couple days ago, and I can't put that baby at the center of my life. I can't make it all about my grandchildren. I can't make it all about my marriage. I can't make it all about the cabin up north. I can't make it all about retirement. I can't make it all about anything else. I need to say with the saints, it really is about Jesus. Now, some people don't have someone else at the center of their life, and they don't have something else at the center of their life. How many of you know that there's some people who have themselves at the center of their life? The whole world revolves around them, right? You know that person? Yeah, we all do. They fill the world. The world revolves around them. And I'm biting my tongue. I'm not calling anyone out. So It was none of you. Don't worry about it. So anyways, even that person gets challenged by Jesus today. He says, not only do you have to hate your mom and dad, so to speak, you have to hate yourself. You have to deny yourself. You can't put you at the center of your life. That's natural for us to put us at the center of our life, to protect ourselves, to look after ourselves, to make it all about taking care of ourselves and all that sort of thing. It seems natural in today's world, but it's not. It's natural to have God there and let God be God, and then let me revolve around that wonderful, wonderful God who is love. And then I can take care of myself and others. If I love God, then by loving God, I can love other people in a way that gives glory to God. I can give glory to God through other people. And so even ourselves, Jesus even challenges those who want to put themselves at the center. You can't do that and follow Jesus. Last of all, he mentions the cross right here. You can put the cross at the center of your life, that's for sure. You can put the cross at the center of your heart. And he says, you have to take up your cross. Now, we are spiritually minded people after 2,000 years of this stuff. We all know that that cross stands for little sufferings in our lives. Yeah, maybe, but in the time of Jesus, that's not what it stood for. When they walked down the road, these people saw people hanging on crosses. This was a horrific idea. This was a horrific thing to happen to somebody. And Jesus is telling us, don't let the most horrific fear bother you. If I'm at the center of your life, yeah, everything else just revolves around me, revolves around God. And so taking up our cross, denying ourselves, dying, and living that life given away, giving our life away for the salvation of the world, giving our lives away and our families away and everything else we possess away for the salvation of those around us, so we can be the light of the world. We can be Christ to one another. This is our faith. It's not easy. Let me close with a little story from a college chaplain. He was at Duke University, very prestigious. And he says, as a chaplain, I got a lot of calls from parents worried about their kids. He says, I don't remember, but maybe one call where a parent was worried about something like, help me, my child is involved in alcohol. I'm worried my son or daughter's too much into alcohol. Maybe one, he said. He said, but I had a lot of calls, over a dozen, where a parent said, help, my child's become a fanatic. Now, by fanatic, what the parent meant was they want to go and work at the Catholic Nutrition Center in Haiti instead of going to Duke Law School. Yeah. They wanted to follow Jesus in the way of the saints instead of revolving their whole life around this system. Yeah. In other words, they wanted to live out their faith. Yeah. To love God isn't a feeling. To love God is a way of life. Right? It has nothing to do with how we feel. I don't care how you feel about God. How are you walking? How are you living? That's our faith. That's our challenge. And what a wonderful faith we have.